Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Accounting as a Major. My name is David Stott, and I serve as the director of the School of Accountancy here at Ohio University. And it is my pleasure to talk to you today a little bit about what it is and what it means to be accountant, or accounting major. So I kind of want to start this with a quick question, and I want you just to think about it for a minute. You know, if you were to picture accounting or an accountant, what would you picture? Basically, what is accounting to you? How do you envision that? How many of you came up with something that looks like this? Basically, the accountant, the bean counter, sits in the corner. I love the green eye shade on my little stick band there. Right, wrong, black, white, boring, tedious, blah, blah, blah. So how many of you think really that's kind of accounting? Yeah, well, guess what? A few years ago, somebody I know really well drew this picture, and I love it. It's actually part of my screensaver. It's half of my screensaver, and I'll show you the other half in a couple of minutes. But basically, this is the vision, the public perception of accounting, right? Everything's black and white, yes, no. It either is or it isn't, right? We basically take all the stuff that goes on and apply a bunch of rules and spit stuff out, right? That's kind of that public perception of accounting. So before I show you the other half of this picture, I want to about what people think about accountants. And some of you might be out there sitting there nodding your head going, "Yeah, I think you're hitting some of the high points." So first myth number 1, accounting is math. I mean, how many of you think that, "Oh my God, I can't do accounting because it's math and I'm not good at math. Math sucks and it's hard." Yeah, well, let me explain something to you. Math. My son's a chemical engineer. He does math. His math has letters and numbers and squiggly lines and all that other good stuff in it. Accountants, yeah, we add and subtract. That's what we do. Most days we add, every once in a while we subtract. A couple of times a year we multiply, and about once a year we divide. That's the math we do. Now, don't get me wrong. We do play with numbers all day long. And a lot of you struggle with not math, but struggle with just a page full of numbers. But our job is to take this information, let me back that up, take this data, all these numbers, and basically turn it into information. We're storytellers and hopefully truthful storytellers, but we really are storytellers. We take all of the financial results of a company, we try to put them in some sort of order and try to make them understandable to other people. We were data analytics before data analytics was a thing, right? We are data scientists. That's what we do. We take data and we turn it into information. All right, myth number 2, all accountants do our taxes. Well, I will tell you that taxes are an important part of our life, something that we do spend a lot of time on, something that's near and dear to everybody's heart. If they're making money, they're certainly, well, we hope they're paying taxes. But you know what? I'm not a tax accountant. In fact, I'm married to a tax accountant. So that's a whole other world. But I was always on the audit and the consulting side when I did this. My job was to talk to people, to consult, to advise. I spent time reading financial statements, interpreting them for people, talking to people about different transactions and what they wanted to do, what they wanted to buy, how they wanted their business to grow and change and do those kind of things. That to me, that was so important. And taxes, sure, taxes are definitely part of what we do. All right. But I'll be honest with you. I am a consultant and a trusted business advisor more than anything else. I always tell my clients, and yes, I have had several over the years, I don't care if I'm your first call, but I want to be your first or second call when you're making a business decision. I'm okay being your second call if your first call is to your attorney. But really, your accountant should be there to help you make really good decisions. So yes, taxes are part of it, but they're such a small part. All right, what about this one? I love this one. I actually had a student a few years ago, actually about maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, said, "Well, isn't our job going to be obsolete in 10 years because computers are going to do all that?" Well, I'm going to let you in a little secret. I've been doing this for mm, about 30 years now. That's scary. Maybe I could tell you I was a child prodigy and started at 3. Not exactly. But the reality is, 30 years ago, we talked about spreadsheets and computers taking over and this, that, and the other. And I would argue that accountants are in more demand now than they were then. And I believe if we look out another 10, 15, 20, 30 years in the future, they're going to be even in more demand. Now, I'll let you in on a secret. When I started, we were using spreadsheets that were actually pieces of paper and pencils and calculators. Yes, calculators, not slide rules. I'm not that old. Okay. But we were using calculators. And then, I was there for the personal computer and the change in that. And then we got to where everybody had a computer. And then they were smaller and smaller and smaller. But, the demands on our time and what we do, we now have better tools. We're able to do things better. But the tools, it's just a box, right? The computer is a stupid little box that does exactly what you tell it to do. And if you tell it to do right, it's great. If you tell it to do wrong, it does wrong too. So the bottom line is we're not going to be replaced by robots. In fact, I truly believe that as we have more and more tools, we're going to be expected to do more and more what I consider the fun side of it, the analytical thinking side. And then lastly, I love this one. Accounting is always the same. If you think back to that previous picture that you saw, boring and tedious and redundant and mundane and those kind of things. I mean, yeah, there are some very systematic parts to what we do. But the reality of the situation is that accounting is constantly evolving, constantly changing. The tax laws are changing. The financial accounting rules are constantly changing. A lot of you are taking 1010 right now. You probably just got through your first exam. And you're going to find that the basics are there and the basics are always there. The debits are always on the left and the credits are always on the right. But how we account for things is constantly evolving. So the reality is this is kind of where I want you to kind of look. Decision usefulness, influential, strategic. We are communicators. Our job is to take information that is very numeric, tough to understand, and try to interpret it and put it in terms that people get. All right. The cool thing about it is every function in society has an accounting need behind it. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But the bottom line is the accountant's job is to try to take this information and help people understand and make good decisions. So here's that picture. This is what I would like to think of is the reality of accounting, right? It starts with economic activity. All right, lots of shades of gray, and you're going to start seeing that in your accounting class where it depends on, well, I constantly tell my students the acceptable answer to any question in any of my classes is it depends. But if you want to use that answer, you need to be able to prepare to answer the follow-up question. And I don't know if anybody the follow-up question to it depends. For those of you that got it, good. On what? So you can always answer a question, it depends in an accounting class, but then you better be willing or able to answer the on what part of that. So what does it depend on? So we make judgments. Our whole purpose is to provide useful information so people can actually make good decisions. And so this is the other half of my screensaver. You saw the red side, and if you actually look at my personal computer, the red side and the blue side, the perception of accounting, and my goal is to try to get people to actually shift from this whole concept of, oh, accountants, boring, tedious, blah, 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 black and white, to, hey, we're here to help people to make them better, to provide them the information so they can make good decisions, and ultimately to create a prosperous society, so to speak. All right. So that's my pitch on what accounting is all about. Real quickly, I want to wrap up by talking just a little bit about career opportunities in accounting, and then we'll finish up with the accounting night. Okay. So career opportunities in accounting. You heard me say not more than 2 minutes ago that there's an accounting function in pretty much every different type of entity out there. So accounting jobs, everybody needs an accountant. Everybody for something. I was the accountant for my church for a long time. And there's an accounting function there. Somebody's got to pay the bills, somebody's got to make sure that the money coming in the door is equal to or greater than the money going out the door. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do your thing. And so it doesn't matter if you're a for-profit company, if you're a not-for-profit charitable organization, a church, a school, you've got to have somebody that can account and record and make sure that all of the reporting gets done. So career opportunities in accounting kind of fall into these individual buckets, and I want to talk briefly about them, and then we'll move on. Public accounting. Public accounting is one of our major employers out there. We have several public accounting firms that recruit here at Ohio University. But essentially, public accounting is where you are providing accounting services to somebody else, to the public. So you're an auditor, you're a tax person, you're a consultant. But basically, you work for a firm that provides accounting services to somebody else. Okay? The second group is what I call corporate or private accounting. This is where you're actually inside of an organization providing the accounting function. So you're the bookkeeper, you're the controller, you're the CFO of a company. Those jobs are lots of those jobs out there. Once again, every organization, every corporation needs an accountant or an accounting function of some sort. Okay. The third group is government. That's right. And we don't always think about it. And I used to not talk a lot about government, but that seems to be a growing area. And if you think about it, government has lots of layers. So you talk about the federal government, you're talking about the IRS, of course. I had a really close friend of mine from college that went to work for the FBI, and we always joked that the FBI needs accountants too. They go out and actually try to track down white collar criminals. I said the only difference between his job and my job is he strapped a gun on his hip before he went to work in the morning. So there's state level as well. There's even city level government employees. And then last but not least, nonprofits. So every nonprofit group, I've already talked about churches, but you could talk about, whatever you want. The Humane Society, the American Red Cross, you name it. There's a need out there for accountants in the nonprofit sector. So in a word, career opportunities are endless. Pick the job, pick the location, pick the type of work you want to do. There's oodles and oodles and oodles of opportunities out there. All right. With this, we do have something we call accounting night here at Ohio University. It is on Wednesday nights. Traditionally, obviously, we meet in person and we meet in Copeland. And we have speakers in pretty much every week during the fall and about every other week during the spring. This semester, because of the virtual nature of what we're doing, we are virtual. Okay, but we're still meeting on Wednesday nights. And in fact, this has been, what are we, several weeks into the semester now. We've had a couple of meetings and we're going to continue them throughout the semester. So I want to encourage you, and I'll make sure that the information gets into your accounting classes in particular, but I want to encourage you to come to our accounting nights. They're being held in Zoom this semester, but we'll be back hopefully on the ground soon. But it gives you an opportunity to really plug in and network and get to know folks and get to understand folks. It also is an opportunity for where our student groups all meet on Wednesday nights as well. So the IMA is the management accounting chapter students here, deals more with corporate side of things. Beta Alpha Psi is the other student group that's the honorary student group, and so they meet. And then the accounting club is kind of the big overriding group. So I encourage you, and the next slide, you're going to get my contact information. If you're interested in accounting night, reach out to me. I will make sure you get on the email distribution list, because I really think, especially now in the virtual world, it's one of those, it's not that hard of a commitment to make. And it's one of those things you can come on, you can start to know people, get to hear some of the different opportunities out there in business. All right. With that, I want to wrap up with one last statement. If you're not already aware, after the last 13, 14 minutes or so, you need to know this. Darn straight. Accounting is cool, guys. Okay, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of things that I think you will find very, very fascinating in accounting. And it's not that mundane, boring stuff that you read about or you think about. And hopefully you're starting to understand that a little bit in some of your other classes. But I encourage you, if you're interested in this, you want to talk more about it, there is my contact information. Please reach out to me. My email address is right there on the screen. I'm in Copeland Hall. Obviously, these days that's a little bit of a challenge, but I really encourage you to think about accounting, think about some of the opportunities. Thanks a bunch. Hope you have a great day.